Please welcome singer-songwriter Emilia Quinn. How are you, Amelia?
I'm very good, thank you. How are you?
I'm very well. Thank you for coming on.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Where do we start? So, where did the country music love first begin?
Um, it's one of those that it kind of ended up being what I was writing naturally without sort of looking for a genre. It's more that I was finding my sound really, and that I found the country music scene in the UK, and I kind of that seemed to be where it mostly lived, and still does. And so it wasn't intentional by any means, but I grew up listening to all sorts of music, a lot that you would class maybe Americana, maybe sort of the more sort of classic rock type of stuff. I mean, it's anything from like Dolly Parton to Meatloaf and that kind of vibe, the Eagles, that kind of thing, and plus French music as well. So French sort of folk artists and stuff like that.
That's an
Real
eclectic
mix.
mix then.
Yeah.
Who was the first country music singer that sort of you really gravitated to? Can you remember?
That's a really good question. To be completely honest, I don't know. I wouldn't know who I kind of like went towards first. I mean, the most distinct memory I have of being solidly, this is country music and I really like it and this is what I'm listening to was when I was at university and I listened to Cam's album. I used to listen to the whole album just on repeat on my bus journey into uni every day for like a month. And I was like, this is amazing. I want to write like this. And it wasn't even consciously I was thinking I want to write country music. I love the storytelling, and I thought that's so up my street of what I was kind of trying to do with my own music already. So I guess that's probably the most distinct memory in terms of gravitating towards country music, and that just opened the door from there.
So, from that then, when did you first begin to realize, right, I want to go into country music and that is my style?
I think when I was writing my debut EP, so I was writing right off in bits and pieces. I don't think it was even with the intention to write an EP. The songs were just kind of coming out, and I was developing the song, one of the songs with one of my tutors. It was Sorry Mama that I was developing with one of my tutors, and he showed me Dad Gad, which obviously is quite used in sort of country music and roots and things like that. And I'd never used it before, and it just opened up this whole world. I was like, wow, this is amazing. This sounds so cool. And he said, your music's got a bit of a twang to it. I'd probably say it's quite country. I was like, right, I see. Okay. And then just my writing style and the things the production I wanted to put around it just naturally kind of went towards the countryside and the sort of Americana side of music. So, the layered harmonies and the acoustic guitars and things like that. So, and then it added like mandolin and stuff in that first EP as well. And it just naturally kind of fell into that genre. And then from that, obviously, I sort of started looking at where my live music could fit well and looked at places like Buckle and Boots, which I was really fortunate to play before my debut EP even came out. And it remains very close to my heart. It was my first country festival ever. So it's a super sentimental one for me, and it kind of went from there. I met a lot of people and just grew.
Can you remember your first original song that you played when you started this journey?
That's a good question. I think the most memorable one would be Sorry Mama, which was the one that I was developing and the one that kind of started the whole conversation around country. So I suppose that one would kind of mark the entry into country music.
Looking back now, then, would you say that your sort of songwriting has drastically shifted in terms of like its sound and influences than from when you first started, or is it pretty much the same?
I started writing songs when I was like 11, so my
Oh
songwriting
wow.
has evolved a lot, hopefully, since then. And it continues to evolve. I think I feel like sometimes I'm a bit of a sponge and I just will listen to loads and loads of music and just take on board different things and think, oh, I'd love to put something like that in a song at some point. But it's never something that I consciously go, right, I'll write that down. And next time I write a song, I'm going to put this in it. It's more that I kind of absorb it mulls over in my brain, and then eventually I'll be listening to that song and thinking, yeah, maybe you should put something like that in a song. And then I'll realize, oh, I have done that now. Okay, I've done it. I feel quite proud of myself. And it's just a melting pot of different influences that's just constantly changing, just like music taste changes. Some artists, their material changes with that as well. So you might like older albums versus new ones and things. So it's a constantly evolving thing, and I think that's probably true for most people as well. It's one of those. It's the beauty of it as well.
Is there any performers and songwriters at the moment that you're still influenced by?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, Larkin Poe has been a band that I've been influenced by for years, a very, very long time. And I just saw them live as well for the first time, and it just blew my mind. They were incredible. But then other artists like, the ones that just don't go out of style, like Meatloaf and like Dolly Parton. And I mean, dare I say it, Miley Cyrus, she was my first ever concert when I was 12.
In fairness, she's very good.
She is very good. And she's a great example of evolving music as well.
She is a great example, and she's had a few different transformations considering she's still quite young.
Yeah,
Like
definitely.
in
She's like,
terms of like if each part of her career was a different sort of bookending, each
mhm.
it was completely different.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's one of the things that I like. And I like these artists that can just change their sound, change their ethos that to grow up with them or grow older with them. And I think that that's really it just feels organic. And I think that's what I like about it. It's very authentic and organic. And that's what I aim to be.
What's on your playlist at home then when you sort of think, right, I want to just chill out and listen to something? What's your go-to?
Are we doing chilling or are we doing getting riled up? Because I can literally look at my Spotify.
Both.
Um, I'm a playlist kind of person, so I will whack a daily mix on and jam out to whatever comes up, or like a discovery playlist on if I feel like I want to find out new music.
Isn't it
But
crazy how much technology has changed our musical journeys?
I know
Like in the
I
old
went
days,
to
you
a
had
shop
to
this week.
physically go to a shop and buy a CD.
I think I like the ritual, and I think there's definitely space for the ritual. Like I've just recently hooked up my record player. I've been in this house like 3 years, and it's taken me 3 years to actually find the cable. But I've
Mm.
hooked up my record player, and it's I love the ritual of playing the vinyl. But at the same time, I love putting a playlist on the car and just either discovering new music or just having all the bangers that I literally listen to on
It's a different
repeat.
experience as well, isn't it? Putting on a record than just
Yeah,
tapping on a screen and listening to it on Spotify or whatever.
for sure. It's a nice way to sort of almost slow down a bit and actually dig into the music rather than just the sort of surface level jamming out, if that makes sense.
When you listen to a lot of the older stuff on vinyl as well, there's a lot of imperfections that now with modern technology would have been edited out.
Yeah,
But
all the
it sort of
remasters.
adds, yeah, exactly, yeah, it sort of adds something different, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's kind of something that I consider when I'm making music as well, in terms of performance over perfection or feel and emotion over perfection. And I think in this genre, it's more important to convey the emotion and capture a really great performance than to wipe out any faults and like make it completely polished and completely perfect. Obviously, it needs to be like good, but I think that it can take away from it trying to perfect it in some ways. And so I always keep a little bit of edge and a little bit of rawness when I'm recording and producing this music.
What do you think has been your musical highlight so far?
Ooh, I mean, on the stage, I think it's been playing the main stage at Buckle because it is a festival that means so much to me. And I've done a lot of growing up between my performances there. I've been there 3 times. So that was really a moment where I kind of reality hit and I was like, wow, okay, I am actually progressing and doing things in the music industry. And that's a bit wild because it's been so long like having your head down and just what can I do next? How can I reach more people? How can I be better than my last record? And I think off the stage, it was being in the studio for 2 days recording my album because that was insane. A lot of people didn't think I would do it, but I did because I had a point to prove, mainly. But it was such a good experience having spent most of my time recording during COVID, so recording remotely. It was a
How
completely
was
different
that?
to do it in the studio. Recording remotely is hard. I think mainly the communication is hard, and because you're not there while it's being tracked, the feedback takes a lot longer. So it was quite nice to be able to just go straight back in when we needed to change something on the recording in the studio versus like 1 to 2 business days to get a new track through from musicians that are scattered all over the world in some cases.
Do you find as well, though, with each song that you release and every album that you will release in the future, that you'll put more pressure on yourself each time?
Yep. That has become very apparent in this whole process for the album.
How do you
It's
deal with that?
so I'm still working that one out. I'll let you know. A lot of sleepless nights and a lot of tea.
So is that when a lot of your sort of best ideas come? Is it like sort of just when you're at home chilling and it's like, right, I've got that idea for a song or that idea
Yeah,
for an
I think
album or a title or something?
it's definitely when I get an opportunity to just sit back, when I'm in the midst of it and I'm like in full planning mode and organizing everything. I think it's just my head's so taken up with getting everything right and scheduling and all that kind of stuff. When I have a moment to have a break from that, almost as soon as I have a break from that, I start to get creative again and get new ideas. Like I kind of joked to my wife last week saying, "Hey, I've got almost a whole album's worth of new material written already, and I haven't even released this one." And I got the death stare of the "Don't you dare." Um, so we're gonna let it mull for a bit, but no, I think it's having time to relax and switch off is important, and I think I'm very good at forgetting that. I think a lot of creators are very good at forgetting that. But I always find that I'm just getting more creative when I do, and grateful for when I'm either forced to or I actually slow down and have a minute.
Where's the strangest place that you've come up with a song?
Um, God, I don't know. Usually I'm in the car driving and I'll lean over and be like, babe, can you just voice note for me? Because I can't use my phone. And that also gets me a bit of a look. No, I'm joking. But I don't know about the strangest place. What's the strangest place? 3 a.m. when I'm supposed to be sleeping and everybody else is sleeping. That's good. That's always a fun one.
It's hard as well, though, isn't it? When in the early hours in the morning when your mind just won't stop, just thinking
Mhm.
of things and stuff like that and switching off.
Oh yeah, and that's the thing. That's the point where you start to relax, and the brain starts to relax, and then relaxation brings that creativity, and it's a vicious
Yeah.
cycle.
What are the songs then that you've maybe taken some sort of influences from over the years? Is it through different genres as well that you thought, right, okay, I'll take a little bit from there and a little bit from there?
Oh yeah, definitely. And I mean, like, it's usually I'll be listening to something or listen to a track that I've listened to loads and pick up on something else, or it'll be brand new. So like, I went to Long Road Festival and I watched War and Treaty, and their set was absolutely insane. It's not like anything I've ever seen before, but it really inspired me to include more kind of stabs and chops and things like that I've never really looked at before. And I'm really fortunate to have a band that are very, very good musicians. So they can do it when I'm just kind of yelling syllables at them and just say, make it sound like this.
Yeah.
I'll just absorb from anywhere, like even down to the sort of rhythm in like rap songs or the sort of cadences or the wordplay that they use. And I'll think, wow, okay, I could probably do something around that. Well, that's something to bear in mind. And I think art, you can take inspiration from anywhere. There's no limit to that, and there's no one to say you can't sort of have influences across the board.
Absolutely, yeah. What do you think then that makes some songs timeless? What do you think are the main ingredients? Given that obviously you've got an interesting point of view with
Uh,
being in it.
I think connection. I think you can make a super technical, complicated to play, really hard, really impressive song with loads of guitar solos and lots of stuff going on. And yeah, people would respect it and think it was really cool, but it might not be timeless because the connection might not be there. Whereas you could have three chords and dead simple lyrics, but if it strikes a chord with someone and it really makes that connection with loads of people, then that those are the songs that tend to become timeless. I think that's the important thing as well to sort of bear in mind when we do write or when we do sort of consider which songs we're going to put out is what is going to connect with people, what is going to make people feel something, what's going to hit a shared experience that everybody's going to sort of benefit from listening to that song as well.
The reason I asked that is because I've interviewed a few different artists over the years and from all sorts of different musical backgrounds, and each one has got a completely different point of view on that. Also, as well, I was listening to some classic Elton John the other day in the car. So I like literally everything. When I go out the playlist on, it could be the latest folk music to really old stuff.
Yeah.
And I found out that the co-writer of your song was 17 when he wrote that song. And it just blows my mind. Like,
Yeah.
so I thought, wait, what point of view can the artist or the creator be in this situation, and what then influences that?
Yeah, I think it's one of those like because you can be creative with it and you can kind of embellish or you can also draw on real life experiences. It just creates this perfect storm for being able to think up emotional connection as well as that kind of escapism as well. Because if you think like you could listen to a song and be really upset and it makes you feel better, even though it's a dead sad song, and it still makes you feel better because you feel like you've been seen and you've been heard and
Mm.
understood, even though that you may have never ever met that person in your life, like the person who wrote it, but you still feel understood. But at the same time, it's taking you away from your reality and your situation and transported you somewhere else, somewhere creative. And I think that's the balance between them, is that the sort of realism and the connection as well as providing somewhere to go, like imagination wise.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, I found within the last sort of 10 years, I've really got more into like folk and country.
Mhm.
And I think one of the reasons was because a lot of what we hear now on most radio stations, wherever you are, is fairly super produced and super commercialized, isn't it? I don't know. There's certain stations where I listen to one song and then I listen to another, and there's no individuality between them. And I'm
Mhm.
going, are they all the same? That's not appealing to me and how I'm feeling. And the first person that got me into sort of folk music about 10, 12 years ago, was a guy called Passenger, pretty well known in the folk scene. And I realized as I took a deep dive into that sort of realm, it's a lot more closer just to old-fashioned poetry, many other forms of music out there at the moment, isn't it?
There's a place for everything. I'm definitely a believer that there's a place for everything, but everybody has their taste as well, and that's why there's a place for everything. That's why
Mm,
we can make all sorts of different music and have access to all these different genres. But I know what you mean in terms of the sort of commercial radio stations at the moment. There seems to be this kind of formula in a way, and I think that's
absolutely.
great and that's awesome. And when you want to party, that's fantastic. But
Mm.
for me personally, I love lyrics. I love words. I started writing poetry before I started writing songs. And I was a huge, fan when I was studying English literature and English language. And that's kind of where it all kicked off from, I suppose.
I was
And
going to say, I bet that really helped you when you came to songwriting.
yeah, it's the love of language, and I think there's definitely a place for it. But in terms of like lyricism, the kind of folk genres and the blues genres and the country genres, they're so focused on lyrics and on the actual story because it was used for storytelling. That's where it's all come from. It's used to convey these fantastic stories or these realisms or messages from like ancestors, and it would be passed down generations, and it would morph in the different tellings and who depend on who was telling it and how it would sound. So that's definitely something that I'm a fan of.
And you've had a few singles released this year. You've had Mr. Shame, Magpie, Nothing to Lose, River, and they're just the ones that I could think of
They're
in the
the
moment.
ones from this
Um, exactly, yeah, they're the most recent ones. How do they all differ in terms of the approach that you took when you were writing them? Were you envisaging a different scenario in each of those songs that you were sort of putting yourself in?
I didn't set out to it. They all come from the album. They're the sort of four singles that I've released before the album releases on the 17th of November. And I never envisioned writing for an album. I knew at some point I'd do an album, but when I was writing these songs, I never sort of thought, yeah, I'm writing this for this specific project. And I don't think that's something that I've ever really done. I'm not the kind of sit down and write, I'm going to write a song now type. I'm a kind of like, I should be doing anything else. And I write a song instead. For example, Mr. Shame, that's probably one of the oldest, if not the oldest. I think it might be the second oldest track on the album. And it's just taken me this long to find somewhere for it to sit. That was just taken from processing things that not very nice people have said to me before, and just kind of saying I'm letting that go. I'm not dealing with that anymore. This is my attitude towards it, and it can go away for all I care. Whereas Magpie is a pretty recent one. I think Magpie got added in quite last minute actually, and I wrote that one just because I was celebrating my wife and thought she was really awesome and thought I'd write a nice song about it.
Wow. You know what you've just done there? You've set the standard so high for anyone listening to this. They'll be turning around to their significant other and going, why can't you do that for me?
To be fair, it came after a lot of you haven't written a nice song about me. So I was like, I better do. And then it ended up being okay. So I whacked on the album because it suited the vibe.
Some people say though that they've got to write like every single day.
Oh,
Does that apply to you?
no, definitely not. I wish I do. I admire the people that can schedule in writing, and it's something that I'm trying to learn how to do. But being creative on demand is something I find so difficult. And like I really go through clusters, I always have. And I'll go through creative clusters where I write loads and loads of songs, and then I'll have 2, 3 months that I won't write anything at all, and then I'll get really angry about it and really frustrated. And I was like, I just want to write something, just want to write something. And then we're back in the creative cluster and then we go again. So it's a cycle. Um, and I'm training myself to try and sit down and come up with ideas because I know that that's sort of, especially with co-writing and things like that, you can't kind of just wait for inspiration to strike, bring them up and they're
Yeah.
right now. So I'm working on that, but yeah, it's definitely not natural for me to write every single day.
When it comes to like, an idea for a song, do you usually have like a situation where it's like, oh, I've got the middle part of what could be a song, or the end part, or do you automatically just go, right, I'm going to start it here
I
and
wish
then
they
work my way
started
down?
it. No, it's a very chaotic process. My handwriting is a testament to that. But I think most of the time I have a bit of a line or a kind of concept, and then I'll start building around that. I'll either kind of figure out what I want to say and put that into words that kind of go together and rhyme and all the rest of it, or I will just have words and I'll just write and then figure out what it means later. It really varies from time to time, but I think a lot of the time it's a bit of a melody and then a kind of concept of a couple of lines, and that's how the ball kind of gets rolling.
Taking about all the way to the beginning then for a sec, what made you want to be a musician? Is it something like from a really young age you just went, that's all I want to do?
I mean, I've been playing piano since I was 6, and then I started writing when I was 11, and that was completely spontaneous as well. Like I did not try to write a song. I didn't think I was going to write a song. I just suddenly was like, oh, something's happening, and I was writing a song. I was like, right, okay, and it continued from there. But I think it's music something that I kind of went back and forth to. I actually quit music for a while when I was younger as well because I fell out with my piano teacher. Said I'm not doing this anymore, and then 6 months later I was back at it. And it's the only thing that I've really stuck with. I was planning on maybe being a biologist at one point or doing something else or doing this, that, and the other. And music is the only thing that I've ever really, really stuck with throughout my life. So I think I'm stuck with it now. And I thought, well, if that's the thing I'm going to go back to, I might as well give it a really good go. And then I think some point around sort of sixth form, that's when I said, right, I'm going to really have a try at it. And if it works out, great. If it doesn't, then I'll work it out. And now I'm at the point that we're so far in, it has to work out in some form or the other.
Who was the first person when deciding this is what I'm going to do that really believed in you and went, yes, you go do it?
My
Because
parents.
I was interviewing a country singer the other day that's moved out to Nashville, but's originally from Wales. And she said, like, in her case, it was all down to the family and that's where the belief system came from.
Yeah.
Because we were talking about a wider point of how it seems to be in this country, for some reason, we just like, if someone really wants to do something or they have ambitions to do something, there's always a person or a group of people like find a reason to say to them, no, they can't do X, Y, or Z. You know what I mean? So I was wondering if this applied to you as well.
I mean, don't get me wrong, I've had plenty of people say, oh, you can't do that, or that's it's not going to happen, or just prepare yourself when it goes wrong. And fortunately, that's never been my family. My family actually has successful like musicians, full-time musicians, and people work in the music industry in it already. And my parents have always said, listen, if it's something you want to do, we will support you, no matter, what it is. You go ahead and you give it your all. And my teachers, my music teachers and my sixth form teachers, maybe bar one, were very, very supportive in it. One of them was like, do you really not want to have just maybe a little bit of a plan B? And I'm like, I know, I appreciate it's your job, but no. But there have been some people that have said, oh, yeah, but that's not, that's not really going to happen, though, is it? And I'm like, well, why not? Why shouldn't it happen before to plenty of other people? Why not me? Won't know unless I try. So I will try.
So do you think then that's when like mindset comes into it as well,
Mhm.
to in order to get you to where you are now?
Yeah, mindset is
Be-
important.
Because I mean, when you start at such a young age, you can fall in and out of love with that particular art form, in your case, music, and it often can come down to that drive and that mindset.
Yeah. I think it's I
Is that
think,
something you've always had?
yeah, I think you've fallen in and out of love with it anyway. No matter how much you love it, there are points where you're kind of saying, and I've said even throughout the album process, I've said, I'm not doing it anymore. I'm never releasing music again. I quit. And it's never true. It's a complete lie. But you just have to say it just to get the feelings out. But I think it's one of those things that if you really, really, really want it, and this is the same for anything in life, if you really, really, really want it, you will find any way that you're happy to make it happen, to make it happen.
Mm.
And what I think is underestimated, especially by people that aren't in it and just see the kind of glitz and glamour playing the shows and releasing the music and the social media, they kind of think, oh yeah, no, that's so cool. And actually, it's unbelievably hard. And it's hard on so many levels. It's hard on a physical level when you're touring. It's hard on an emotional level when you're touring,
Yeah,
when you're putting your heart out into these songs, when you're really reliving all these moments that aren't always going to be nice moments to relive because you've used songwriting as form of therapy and you're just putting that out to everybody and all of a sudden you are so bare in front of all these people and you have to go through that every time you sing the song as well. I mean, it gets easier and you sort of you're reliving it not as sort of full on, but you're still going through those emotions. And I think it's something that you're going to be let down in a lot and you're going to have a lot of disappointments because there is a lot of rejection in this line of work. And there's no sort of advice better than deal with it. If it's what you want to do, you deal with it. You're putting yourself in this position, crack on. If you don't want it, you can quit anytime. No one's going to make anybody be a musician or be an artist. But if you really, really want it, then you're prepared to deal with all of the stuff that comes around it that is not so great.
yeah. I'm also wondering as well, how has like music helped your growth in terms of like as a person or all around in life in general?
I think it's particularly recently, it's making me a bit more confident, a bit more sort of sure of myself. It's a really great way of processing emotions as well. Like just the way that maybe someone will listen, or even I will listen to music, make myself feel better or feel connected. I'm able to get my emotions out onto paper and into song and in a creative and kind of positive way. And the fact that I can then have feedback from people saying that it's done something for them as well, it's done something positive for them as well. It's really awesome. That's a really good boost. But I think it's definitely just a whole part of me that I wouldn't even know how to separate it out anymore. It's just what I do and who I am.
Now, obviously, you spoke earlier about your new album, so tell us a little bit about it. Is it something you've been working towards for a while now, I'm guessing?
Well, yeah. So it came into concept before I even released the last EP that I released in 2021. So it was already a concept way back then. Not in terms of like maybe the tracks, I maybe had a few tracks that I knew I was going to put on it, but as a concept as a whole, I said, right, okay, this next EP is my last EP, and then I'm going to do an album. And then I sort of took the rest of that time to kind of gradually put it together until I booked the studio for December last year. And then from then, it has been sort of the full on prep mode for it, putting the whole record together. So we were in the studio in Motor Museum Studios in Liverpool for 2 days. We live tracked the majority of the album, which means that we were all playing at the same time in the studio. Um, we did 10 tracks in 2 days, which is kind of
Wow.
insane.
Yeah.
And this is what I mean when people said that they didn't necessarily think it was going to happen. The recording studio engineer actually phoned me and just said, I need to manage your expectations because I don't think this is doable. And I was like, but I do, so we're gonna do it. My band were like, sure. And I was like, no, we are. I mean, bless it. They were like, you know what, we'll give it a good go. They go along with my crazy quite a lot. And so we went in, we filmed it as well to like document the whole process. And that's actually become a documentary that my wife has put out. If anybody is interested in that, it got submitted in like a film festival as well and things, which is really cool.
That's
And that
awesome.
really shows like the madness behind doing this whole thing, that just 10 tracks in 2 days to record is mad. But we did it, and it was really, really cool to say that we did it. I think the only thing we went back in for like half a session was for backing vocals. And to be honest, that was just because our voices were, well, my voice was a bit blown out by the end of the sessions. But it's been a real journey since then as well, just getting all the releases, all the singles out, because we were in the studio in December and the first single came out in January. which is a really, really fast turnaround as well. But I had the plan and I wanted to stick to it, and it's evolved over the year as well. We kind of did a lot of experimenting in terms of the production, added a few bits here and there just to really beef it up because we wanted it to reflect the live sound that I was having. So I was having a lot of comments saying, "Oh, Emilia's really good. You need to see her live." And I was like, well, I want to bring that on a record. I want to give that feeling on a record because that's really exciting. And I think we've achieved that now. So I'm very excited for it to finally come out on the 17th of November. And tomorrow, which will be the 26th of October, it will be available for pre-save, finally.
How did you come up with the name?
The name is the first two, well, two, three, I guess, technically. I'm really sorry if you can hear snoring. My French bulldog has gone to sleep under my chair.
I have that effect on a lot of people, don't worry.
Sorry. I'm just gonna. Jimmy, he's really asleep. Oh my gosh. Oh, bless him. Um,
Oh God, this is going to throw me off, I can tell.
he's got three legs, if that helps. So yeah, what's
Oh,
breaking rules?
brilliant.
It's the first three words in one of the songs called Daddy's Girl that's on there. And I just really liked the sound of it. And it really sums up all of the tracks. They're all about various journeys, whether they're spiritual, emotional, or physical journeys, as well as breaking rules, because that's something that I have always done.
Oh,
um,
you're rebellious, were you?
when people tell you you can't do something or no, that shouldn't be done that way, I will go ahead and just do what I'm doing. Thank you very much.
Determined, strong-willed.
Oh, yeah. It becomes a problem at points.
And of course, we've not referenced the album title yet. It's got Wanderlust in the title. I don't want to say it because I'll definitely butcher it. Is it Wanderlust and Breaking Hearts? Did I
One
get
of
it right?
the rules.
I was nearly there.
Close.
So, so what's the sort of first song that you've got on there that
So the
you're
first
really
track,
proud of?
gosh, so the opening track is actually the first single we put out, which is River. And I feel like it might be a little bit brave in starting the album.
Uh, oh, I
Otherwise,
love how I love
it's,
how your dog's just like literally started is taking over.
it's chronic. Try recording in this house. Can you imagine recording in COVID in this house with no one's allowed to walk past. You know, it's a public street, but no one's allowed to walk past. But yeah, so
Brilliant.
River, as Cece really kindly demonstrated, starts a cappella. And I felt like it was a really different kind of sound to anything I'd released before, which is why I put it out as the first single because we like to be different.
Absolutely.
Go left when no one's expecting it. And then the majority of the singles were actually released in order, which wasn't planned at all, but they are until you get to Mr. Shame, and that's when it all falls apart.
Was there any songs that didn't quite make the cut onto the album?
There are, yeah. There were a couple of songs that could have almost nearly made it, but didn't quite. But they might make it onto. I'm still intending on recording a couple of them, and they may make it onto the next record, or they may become singles in the future. With a few of the album tracks as well from previous projects, they could have gone on to previous EPs, but they didn't quite make it for whatever reason.
Was it quite hard when you was going through the process of like deciding which ones you were going to put on the album? Was it
Yes,
quite a close call with a few
there
of
was
them?
some, yeah, there was some that I was definitely like, do I drop that? Do I not? Do I include it? Do I not? I don't know. And that's where I'd go to other people with their for their opinions, to see what they're thinking. So like my wife, my management team, my label, my band, like what do you think? And usually I've already made up my mind by the time I ask someone else anyway. But a lot of the time they're kind of saying what I'm thinking already, especially if it's about dropping a song, they're kind of saying, nah, it doesn't quite fit. And I'm like, I knew it didn't. I'm glad just to have that confirmation. But it's really important to have those outside voices because you can get so bad tunnel vision with it and so like into the actual project, be too close to it to really see what it looks like from the outside and just as a whole and as a bigger picture.
Obviously, you've been touring a lot this year and last year. What's been the highlight of your touring this year?
Gosh,
Is there a particular gig that stands out? Location?
I think we kicked off the year really strong with my first headline show in Manchester, which was really awesome. It was an acoustic, did it as a trio. And that was a really cool way of kind of kicking off the year. That was back in January. And then since then, I've got a few sort of bucket list shows that I was really lucky to get. I supported Laura Evans in February. I played
Nice.
that year for the first time, which I've been wanting to do that for years. So that was really awesome. I did the main stage at Buckland Boots, which again, that's like such a meaningful one to me. So that
Mm.
was really incredible. And then just leading up to planning my own very first headline tour, which just seems absolutely crazy to say because I've been wanting to do it for so long, but waiting for the right time. And I thought releasing the album, I wanted to do something for it. I didn't want to just do one show, though. I felt like it deserved a little bit more than that because it is such a massive project for me. So we're coinciding it with the Wanderlust and Breaking Rules tour to launch it as well. So we've got that to look forward to in November.
Oh, brilliant. Yeah. So you kick that off on the 14th of November. Is that
I
right?
do.
London?
We kick off on the 14th in London, and then we go through to the 18th. So we go to Birmingham, Manchester, Glasgow, and then round it off in my hometown of Leeds.
Oh, you're from Yorkshire. Oh, I'm from
I
Hull.
am.
I was a bit further east than you. It's
Yorkshire's a,
great, isn't it?
I'm an honorary Yorkshire lass, kind of. I've been
Oh,
here a few. I've been here long enough that they kind of adopted me as one of their own.
oh yeah. Yeah, I moved down to the Isle of Wight about 10 years ago, and the more locals I got to sort of know, and I got to know the local terminology for things and things like that. Some one of them went, no matter how long you've been here, you might not truly be ever accepted.
It's horrible.
They've got their own name for someone that's moved from elsewhere, and apparently it's called an overner, which means if you've come from over the water to get here.
That's brutal.
It is. Played many gigs in Yorkshire this year.
I've had a few, yeah, and obviously rounding off, we've got one tomorrow actually in Bradford, which is like an intimate acoustic, almost like listening party in a way, just pre-tour, and then obviously rounding it off in November. But yeah, I've had a few here and there.
What do you think the difference is in terms of the crowds, depending on where you've performed in the past?
To be
Is
honest,
there a is there certain locations and parts of the country that you played in where your music is just received even better than it was in the last place?
I think everywhere has like a different sort of vibe, but everywhere is also really appreciative. Um, I think the place that I probably struggle the most, and it's not because they're not good listeners or anything like that. They are the best, audiences if you want to get rowdy. But the problem when I go up to Scotland, especially Glasgow, is I can't understand anybody. So a lot of the time I just kind of smile. I'm like, and I have to ask, it gets to the point that it's just awkward that I have to ask someone to repeat what they're saying to me. And I just end up kind of being like, can I ask again? I really don't understand what's going on. I'm so bad with accents, but they're so lovely and so chatty that I feel so bad about it.
Yeah, that just reminds me as well. Like we've my partner's family's from like North and West Yorkshire, so when they come down here every summer, like Dad will come down and everything. He's really broad Yorkshire, and and a lot of the sort of locals around here have literally never left the island really. And
Very
literally, my partner at the time was working at a local shop, and he'd gone in to see her while she was at work, and he was chatting to one of the workers there, and he went. So then, where's the that water? I was like, and they were like, what? Do you mean water? Yeah.
and then so begins the war of the accents and how it's pronounced. Is it ah
Ex-
or ah? I
Yes,
have
that's it.
I've
Yeah.
adapted.
What's the one sort of phrase or word though when you went up to Scotland where you went, okay, I don't have a clue about anything up to this point, but get that part.
Um, hen. They like to say hen.
Oh, you got a bit of the twang there as well. You picked that up.
I've been spending too much time with them. No, I think that's probably the one that I like the most. I think if they're going, oh, we had, oh, we're being friendly, we're all good, it's fine. Everybody likes everybody, it's fine. No,
So
they're honestly they're great audiences. But if you ever to speak to me and you've got a thick Glaswegian accent and I'm just smiling at you, nodding, slow down, please.
yeah, it's too much information overload, isn't it?
It's a great accent. I just don't understand it.
What's on your bucket list in terms of your career going forward? Is it to reach a certain level in terms of the charts or a certain venue? be it domestically or globally?
I think it's just kind of ongoing, any sort of ongoing growth and being able to live off my music and have it be a viable career. And obviously that happens due to the fans. So just keep connecting with people, keep finding people that might like my music and find some value in it for them and just carry on that way. But there's always new bucket lists and new goals coming and it's great to be able to try and reach some and then find the next thing to move on to.
Where's the strangest place your music's been listened to? Because obviously on Spotify they'll give you the breakdown, won't
Yeah,
they?
I don't know if they're like all that strange on there, but I do remember I was once on a live stream, this was during the pandemic. I was once on a live stream and I had a comment saying that they were listening and it was a bar in, I want to say it was Chicago, and they were watching the live stream and it was a purely British live
Wow.
stream, completely no relation to the US at all. There's no one from the US on there. And they just said, "Oh, we've got you on the TV in Chicago." And I was like, "Oh my God, that's really cool."
Would you ever want to go to America and do a tour one day?
I'd love to tour in America. I've visited a few times over the years and just been in there on my honeymoon as well. We've just been to Austin and Nashville, which was incredible. And so, yeah, hopefully one day
And
I'll
they
try.
love country music there, don't they? It's embedded in the DNA.
Definitely.
I was asking somebody the other day who was in the country music world, um, and what's really interested me is that how in America and Nashville and that part of the world particularly, country music is so embedded into daily life,
Hmm.
more so than any other music there. Whereas it doesn't seem to be quite like that here and in other parts of the world, does it? Like,
Yeah, I know what you mean. I think there's a lot of focus on the kind of American artists that come over, and that's great.
mm,
I think that is opening doors to the British artists that are doing the similar genre here as well. But I think yeah, it's a lot. I mean, they kind of call it it's the birthplace of country music, as it's kind of known as country music as well.
mm,
Um, but I think the influences they is even for that genre, they come from all over the world. It's a real melting pot. If you look at the actual influences of the genre as a whole and what came before it, it's global.
yeah, and obviously, Americana generally has been around forever,
Mhm.
and it means something different to everyone. What does it mean to you as someone that's in it and as someone that's what they do?
I think it's a melting pot of lots of different genres, and it's the kind of it's almost become a label of to sort of put on artists that shift genres as well, that are kind of between maybe a bit of blues and a bit of rock and a bit of country and a bit of folk and that kind of go between all of those. And I think that's kind of what the name Americana has evolved into meaning in terms of music. And that's why I sort of class myself country Americana because I'm not pure country. I never claim to be pure country, but I think there are influences there. And maybe Americana is a better label for it. I don't know. But like I said earlier, I take my influences from everywhere and anywhere that I can. And so I think to me, that's what Americana means. It means kind of mixing a lot of different things together and making something that just sounds good.
Obviously, you've achieved a lot so far. What's that one thing though you'd definitely have to tell your younger self? It's a piece of advice or something that you'd go, look, don't do that because this is going to happen, or think
I don't
this, don't think that. But,
Yeah, I don't think I'd change anything because that's no matter good and bad, that's what's got me here. I'm good and bad or indifferent. That's everything that sort of built it to now. And I think there's value in lessons learned along the way. And if there were mistakes made, then it still worked out in the end. So that's probably what I'd say to my younger self was like, don't worry, you've got this, you're gonna be fine. Just do what you need to do and you'll learn.
now, final couple. If you could duet with anyone, dead or alive, who would it be?
Either Freddie Mercury
Good
or
shout.
Chris Stapleton.
It's very good. I wasn't going to ask this, but seeing you've said Freddie Mercury, I've got to. Is he the best front man ever?
Oh, that feels like a very loaded
Or
question.
or can you throw anyone else into the mix, into the debate?
There
Because
is,
this has been a debate that's raged on, hasn't it, for years?
I think the only answer to that is that there is only one Freddie Mercury, and there will only ever be one Freddie Mercury.
That is very diplomatic. I like it. And final two, if you used to write a book one day, what do you think you would call it?
Wanderlust and Broken Rules?
Good, good. I
The
like
P.
it. Would that be the book title or the first chapter?
Oh, that's a good question. I'll come back to you when I write a book.
All right, do that. And finally, just remind everyone about your new album that's coming out. Where can they get it? Where can they find you?
Yeah.
All that jazz.
So you can find me anywhere online that says Emilia Quinn Music, spelled Emilia, a little bit different, I know. But Emilia Quinn
It's
Music
good
and
to be
all
different.
exactly. And the album is called Wanderlust and Breaking Rules. It will be out on the 17th of November, but if you head to any of my socials, then you will find the pre-save link there, and it would mean the world if you could pre-save it for me.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Amelia. It's been fantastic.
Thank you.
Cheers. Thank you very much. Bye bye.